We've always had clients that just say, "Hey, I'm old school. I want an in-person meeting." One of our lawyers had the client did this in-person meeting, and the client told him something I was surprised by. The client said, "I want an in-person meeting because I just wanted to make sure you were not AI." And it was serious. It was like, I just don't believe that, I don't trust the fact that everything's being automated now, and I wanted a real lawyer, so I wanted to meet you in person. So what do you think about that? You buy that?
I think it's completely fair. I don't trust anything in this world nowadays.
Welcome to episode 119 of the Weekly Docket, a podcast by the Silverman Law Firm where we talk legal news and practical law. Today is April 24th, 2026. I'm Phil Silverman, owner of the firm and your host, and I'm joined by Chris Heald, who is our firm's supervising attorney. Chris, NBA playoffs, are you into that sort of thing?
I'm into all sports, you know that. Not too excited about the Rockets, but NFL
Hmm,
draft, playoffs. It's a good time of year.
it's a good time of year. All right, let's just dive right into it. We've got about 3 or 4 questions we're just going to kind of tackle. Some of them administrative, some of them substantive law questions. It should be another short show, which is just an indication of kind of how busy we are at the firm. But all right, let's start with this. The difference here's we had this issue where, and this has happened before, but it just came up and I ended up having to like wake up and deal with this. But the clients are often, and this is surprising to us as lawyers, clients are often confused between a demand letter and an actual lawsuit. So does that surprise you?
A little bit. I mean, yes, you're right. It does happen. And I don't know the specifics on this matter. If I'm reading, if I'm inferring properly, I'm not sure I read everything. Maybe the person was served by substituted service, but a lot of times, if a process server puts something in your hand and says, you've been served. Although I guess technically you can be served a lawsuit via mail, it's just very, very uncommon.
Well, I have seen some attorneys, and I think it's crazy, but yeah, the process server will take the money. Have you ever heard of this where it's just a demand letter and the attorney will, pay a process server to go out and personally serve the demand letter? Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, we've had clients ask us to do that. We tell them there's really no legal effect, but
Yeah.
they want to scare them. They want to make it look official. They want just absolute proof from a certified human being that says, I put this in their hands. So, yeah, we've had that. I'm not always a fan of it. One of our attorneys taught me the trick of sending things via FedEx because people don't often expect a FedEx to be legal. Whereas if they're in a legal dispute and they get a certified mail card in their mailbox that says, hey, you got to come to the post office and sign for the
Yeah.
certified mail, they say, haha, yeah, right. FedEx, they're not usually thinking that's something from a lawyer.
Yeah. So there's some confusion and the way you're served is usually a big indication. If a process server comes out there and gives it to you, it's probably a lawsuit. But let's just assume that maybe there are other methods of service and maybe you were never served, but you're looking at the document. So what are some, if you're just looking at the document, what can you tell a client as to what would be a tip off if it's a demand letter versus a petition or complaint?
Well, as you know, you don't just serve the petition. If I just serve the petition on you, that wouldn't be valid service. The clerk actually has to prepare a citation, and at the top it
Mhm.
says citation, and
Yeah.
then after the cause number, the first five words are "you have been sued." So if it says "you have been sued," that is a good indication that you have been sued.
Yeah. That is a pretty good one. Um, it's going to have a case number if it's a petition or complaint. Now, complaint is federal, petition is state court. It's going to have a case number. So if you see a case number, all right, that's a good indication it's been sued. If you're looking at a demand letter, not going to be a citation, not going to be a case number. It's likely going to be on attorney letterhead. Lawsuits will say, yeah, you citation, you've been sued. Anything else we're missing, Chris, as kind of giveaways?
No, I think you're hitting on them. The citation's a good one. The process server, even though technically they could be flip flopped, you could just as easily serve
Mhm.
someone via mail or posting it on their door. Or we've even had success serving people via Facebook because we know who they are. But the attorneys and the attorney on their demand letter might have a file number, but it'll say our file number. I don't know why
Yeah.
they do that, but I'm not a fan of attorneys saying what their file number.
Well, I think we covered most of it for how to tell the difference. Hopefully that's helpful. We did have this one case where the guy was confused and he's like, "Oh, I just got a demand letter," and it was actually a complaint. So,
I
yeah,
wonder
and
if sometimes people are pretty misleading though too. So I wonder if we could probably do a series of shows, not even one show on like scams, but like that they say regards to this and they make it look like it's a lawsuit or
yeah,
citation number this and it's because they've put a number on it and it's like they really try to scare you into thinking you better respond or else. Um,
yeah,
gosh, we
that
could do a whole series on those.
that is a good idea, and those are probably ought not to be done by people because I think that can get into sort of criminal if you're misrepresenting the idea that you're a government clerk or something like that, and that's a whole nother topic. But all right, let's talk about administrative topic. All right, as attorneys, we bill hours. That's just what we do, billable hour kind of thing. We had this come up in the attorney chat room, billing for drive time. I remember when I first hired an attorney years ago for one of my other businesses, and I was like, "Hey, he had to fly somewhere." And I was like, "Do you really have to bill me for, like, the time you leave the door, going to the airport, security, on the plane, and, wherever this place." "Oh, yeah." His position, his firm absolutely had to do it because he could be billing on other things. He's billing for sitting on the plane. Um, I don't think we do that at the firm, usually. It's not our practice. How do you feel about that kind of thing? And
Well, ethically, morally, can I sleep at night? Yes. I think billing specifically for travel time, if it's, I'm leaving the office and I'm going to the courthouse. If I'm going up to Montgomery County
Mhm,
and you hired me for a Montgomery County case, and I'm happy to take a Montgomery County case, but it's an hour up there and an hour back, I think
mhm,
it's perfectly fine, especially because sometimes hearings are only 30 minutes. And so you've taken 2.5 hours and I had to sit and wait for the case to be called. I
mhm,
do try to cut clients a break. What do you think? We're probably about 30 minutes from the courthouse. So with parking and everything, I tend to charge just like an hour and a quarter for a hearing.
mhm,
Like
mhm.
I just try to leave it at that, even if I'm down there a little more, or if I am
Yeah.
stuck in traffic, or, and I try to get there early. I don't want to get there right at my hearing time.
Mm,
Um,
mhm,
Sometimes as a rule we just do like halftime, like okay, if I have to drive 2 hours, I'm going
mhm.
to bill you for that 4 hours, but it's really only going to be two. Because again, you don't
Yeah.
always want an attorney in the hill country, so they hire our Austin attorneys and those Austin attorneys have to drive a couple hours.
Yeah. I've seen attorneys do different things. I think currently our policy is if you're within 30 minutes, we absorb 30 minutes of the drive time, something like that. The idea being if you have an attorney that's 20 minutes from the downtown courthouse, you probably are not going to get billed for the drive time in that situation. But if you're going somewhere far, then I think we do typically bill for the drive time. But yeah, a lot of attorneys do bill for travel time. I have seen some, you being a probate guy, and I was recently going over some of the probate documentation and guidance from the probate courts, and some of the probate courts said, "Oh no, we don't allow but drive time billing." And I said, "Okay," so it's just I can't remember which court that was, but that was what it said. Um, so yeah, it's a little bit about travel time. Most attorneys, I do think, bill for it for our level of clientele. You're talking about small businesses, individuals. It's a tough ask to say, all right, yeah, we've got to fly down somewhere and build a client 5, 6 hours in travel time before we even get there. Um, I think there was a state bar opinion. I think I told you about this where might have been related to guardianship, and I don't know why they were traveling, but yes, they were billing for time while they slept. And I think,
That's tough. Well, and especially guardianship and probates, where the courts do put out a lot of guidance because most of the time your fees are being paid out of the estate, whether it's,
yeah,
a dependent administration or a guardianship where the court actually does have the auditor go over your fees and then approve it, or even if it's an independent where the executor just pays your fees or pays themselves back after they pay you, they do have to put out that guidance so that the beneficiaries can know, okay, that the executor's acting within the bounds. I mean, yesterday I had a hearing that was probably only 15 minutes, but again, I can't bill 15 minutes. I got to leave my house. I got to get all the way to the courthouse. I got to sit there,
sure.
and then I got to come back. So I'm billing an hour and a half for that because that's how much time it's going to take more time than that, quite honestly. But I think an hour and a quarter to an hour and a half is fair because in real time, it definitely door to door took me longer than that to get to the courthouse and get back before I could start working on other
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about something else. Referrals. Okay. And this isn't just, we get a lot of questions at our firm where, hey, you guys don't practice family law, you don't practice criminal. Do you have some referrals? Um, it can be outside of the context of law. It could be doctors, appraisers, whatever. And I think some good practices for businesses making referrals. I know that we don't like to make referrals because I'm always worried that we make a bad referral, right? I'm not even sure there's a cause of action for negligent referral, but I'm just scared of referring somebody to someone and then having it not go well and then being mad at me. So, but I think we've softened on that a little bit. And what do you think about making referrals? You okay making referrals?
In very limited circumstances, I mean, if it's part and parcel to a case, and I say, hey, we use this guy as an expert before, we should probably go with this one. But I don't even know if that would count as a referral. That's just us saying, hey, let's go hire this
Hmm.
expert. We're all attorneys. We all have friends we went to law school with or friends that we know. So a lot of times people do like referring their friends' business if it's something we don't do. Um, you know, my two closest friends are a PI attorney and an in-house counsel at an oil and gas company. I don't have a lot of referral work for them. We get a lot of referral work from PI attorneys. We don't have very much to give to PI attorneys, but I,
Yeah.
I'm with you. I don't love it. I like my friends, but I also just don't want to just give work to my friends and be like, oh yeah, call my friend, even though both of the attorneys I know are very trustworthy, very good attorneys.
Yeah. I've seen a practice that I've kind of started that I feel better about. If and this would be my advice, whether you're a doctor or an appraiser or whatever your business and you're making a referral, it can be if you're going to make a referral, give the guy at least two options. That way, he's made the choice, so there's really no liability. You can say, "Hey, I gave you two options. You selected the wrong one, I guess." So and I think that's a good practice. It kind of limits the liability, but you're still offering your client or a service. So we started to do that. I think one of our attorneys asked for family law references. So I gave two family law references. So,
I'm not sure I know
hey,
any family attorneys.
yeah, I know a handful. So,
I hope
criminal
to not
lawyers.
need one.
No, let's not wish that upon anybody. But all right, that's referrals. Uh, Last and final topic of the day. I saw a new reason for in-person meetings. For many years now, we've tried to avoid in-person meetings since we've gone completely virtual. And we've always had clients that just say, hey, I'm old school. I want an in-person meeting. One of our lawyers had the client did this in-person meeting and the client told him something I was surprised by. The client said, I want an in-person meeting because I just wanted to make sure you were not AI. And it was serious. It was like, I just don't believe that I don't trust the fact that everything's being automated now, and I wanted a real lawyer, so I wanted to meet you in person. So, what do you think about that? You buy that?
I think it's completely fair. I think I don't trust anything in this world nowadays. We're not. big
Hmm.
online shoppers. Maybe we're just dumb, my wife and I, but we have both. I feel like half the things we buy online are scams and frauds, even though it looks like a perfectly legitimate company. You're like, oh, let me sign up for this service or let me buy this thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't trust anything nowadays. It's shocking. And so, people give us $500, $1,500, and then they say, oh, did I just send my money into nothing? I don't actually know this person. I talked to somebody on a phone, but how do I know that
Yeah.
the work's going to get done? And,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, there's just so many things that I think once people part with their hard earned money, they
Yeah.
suddenly wonder, have I just been scammed? I never went to a lawyer's office. I never saw a receptionist. I never sat at a conference table. Am I stupid? I get it. I definitely get it.
Some of the things I tell people if they're apprehensive is, as I say, look, I'm a real person. I've got a podcast, and by the way, I get a lot. We get a lot of comments thinking that mostly me, not you, that I'm
That
AI.
you are
It's like,
AI.
right? The guys like, and I have no way to prove it. I was like, no, no, I'm a real person, and I
I
think
think you're supposed
my
to put
in
a shoe on your head, like when they say put a shoe on your head and take a picture, like then you know.
oh, AI cannot put shoes on heads.
I don't know.
Uh,
Maybe AI can. I don't know.
if I were AI, I would do less imperfections. I was like, clearly look at all my imperfections. I don't have a filter on. So I'm the real deal. But I tell people, I'm like, look, go listen to the show. We're real people. I said, go look at our Google reviews. Go to the state bar page. We're licensed. I don't, what else to say? We're real people. But yeah, some people do want to come to the office still, and I understand that, but not something that we really try to provide. But that client, yeah, paid, talking about looping it back into travel time. I mean, the client paid the travel time to bring the attorney into the office and meet and talk to them. And I guess the client wanted that. So yeah.
I do miss those
Um,
days, honestly. And I know we never had that really, but I miss the days of, oh, you've got a 1 o'clock, your 1 o'clock's here, they're in the conference room, and you leave your office, you
mm,
walk over there, you get a Dr. Pepper, you sit with the client for an hour. The world
th-
just isn't what it used to be.
those were less efficient days, but they were slower. They were nicer.
You know,
We were in suits. We were going to
are
lunch.
are we better now? I have this conversation with my wife every day. Has technology actually made us better? You're right. We can crank out so much more work, but are any of us actually better now?
Yeah. We'll ponder
We'll
that
ponder.
for next show.
Okay.
We'll ponder that and have an answer for next show. All right, that brings our show to a close. I've been your host, Phil Silverman. Chris Hield has been my co-host today. Like us, follow us, review us wherever you get your podcast. And as a reminder, nothing in this show is to be considered legal advice, and this has all been for entertainment purposes only. If you have a legal question, email us at info@syllablawfirm.com. That's info@syllablawfirm.com, and tell us you want it publicly answered in the podcast. Everybody have a great weekend.